No, you're fine.
You look great.
Hey, hi, welcome everybody this afternoon. I'm so glad it's a beautiful day for everybody to be here. My name is Yvonne Garcia. I'm the owner and the director of Hooks-Epstein Galleries. You are in the oldest gallery here in Houston, founded in 1969 by my mentor and founder, Jerry Hooks. I took it over back in 2021 when she passed away. I have been working alongside her for about 15, 16 years. So it had always been the plan. Carrying on her legacy, which is great. But enough about me. We have independent curator Rosa Orlando here with us today, and she will be doing a conversation with Angel Castelán. We started representing Angel back in 2019, saw his work at the thesis show at U of H. Jerry and I fell in love with the work. We got to meet him, we fell in love with him. And we were like, join us. So he said, yes, I will. So this is his second showing with us, and I just love this work. Very dreamy. I'll come out here when I'm by myself, just kind of look, and I'm like, I love the vibe. It's so beautiful, beautifully done, and very calming. And then Rosa Orlando, she's independent curator. The most recent thing she did was curate between two artists' studio co-ops, with Box 13, which Angel is a part of. And we have some of his art colleagues here as well from Box 13. She also did, also curated the show at the Holocaust Museum with Sam, which was really well received and just a really great show in general, showcasing Latinx art here in Houston. Yes, I'm participating as well. So I'm going to stop talking, let them take it away, and enjoy. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Yvonne. I'm super honored to be here. Thank you, Angel and Yvonne, for inviting me to be part of this conversation. I wanted to start a little bit by asking you to share a little bit of you as an artist, your creative process, your ideas and investigation, and then we're gonna get into how this show came to be. But I think it's important to have a little bit of context. So if you can share,
So like Yvonne mentioned, back in 2019 when they first started representing me, I was at U of H. I was working on my Master's of Fine Arts and Painting. My committee back then for thesis committee was Eric Marizette, Rachel Hecker, Dr. Roberto Tejada, his name, Gabriel Martinez, and Elena Montoya. So y'all know them. They're all pretty big in their fields and very good at what they do and what they kind of talk about. And back then, that's when my work kind of shifted into a lot of autobiographical work, mainly working with myself, I guess through some portraiture, but also bringing in my experiences after coming out to my parents at the beginning of grad school. So I came out as gay to my parents, after I had been out to my friends for a while, and that's when I really started kind of investigating and being more comfortable, kind of showing work like that. And even back then it was still very preserved, and it still is to an extent. Only this half of the work over there, it gets a little bit more, even more comfortable, right? And I think that also has to do a lot with the way I was raised in the traditional Hispanic Mexican household, where there's all these messed up notions of machismo, where you can't really talk about your feelings or you can't be open about certain things, and especially if it comes when it comes to someone being gay or homosexual or anything like that, where people are aware of it in the family but they don't want to talk about it. So this was a way for me to kind of start branching away from that, becoming more comfortable, but also kind of forcing them to be aware of it and to accept it at some point, which they did. From there, that's kind of where I've been sitting out for a little bit, just continuing these investigations and capturing all these little fragments or moments that I really find like a comfort in. Because I think there's already enough stress us having to go out to work, navigate political climates, but also like here in Houston where road rage, and then you get and the news bombarded with all things that happen throughout the city. I think there's already enough of that, or when you get home, you can almost just leave it at the door and just be with wherever you are, or with your dog, or and just kind of, at least with me, just kind of sit with yourself and just kind of work through things. And that's also a big reason why I like to capture all these little moments where I'm either just sitting in the tub, kind of like thinking back, like what am I going to do next, or reflecting back on the week. I'm also a teacher. I teach at HEC and Lone Star, so it's a lot of navigating a lot of different things with them as well.
Okay. So yeah, I think this show also reflects a lot of that, in the sense that first of all, you get the feeling that it's an intimate show. And I think, of course, because of the subject matter, but also the choice of saris and media, because the drawings in general, I see, well, it's a common understanding that they're like the most direct media to the artist, they're closest to the artist because they're just drawing instead of, with a canvas, which is a little bit more removed, and sculpture is even more removed from the artist in that sense. So I think it's a wonderful choice of media because it allows to kind of portray that feeling too. And also because the scale asks the viewer to get close. And that is an invitation to your world, to your intimate world. And I think that's the very effect in the show. Then also, I wanted to talk about two different things that I will go in order, but one is about how, to me, that capturing of a moment comes from the tradition of the Impressionists, because that was pretty much at the same time when the camera, the photograph, the camera was invented, so it was just, okay, that idea of capturing a moment. And I kind of get that from your pieces, but also I get the longest tradition of, let's say, the classics, right? The nudes, those kind of poses. So I think it's a very interesting contemporary take on those two traditions. And I wanted to know if that's something that it was conscious, or do you think of that in that way or not?
I think for the most part it's unconscious when it comes to referencing things like that. I know before I mentioned that back at UH in undergrad, I took a class with Gail Stack. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her, but she's a painter. And recently she was at UH for like a very long time. She was just in her 80s probably when she finally retired. But one of the main things I learned from taking that class was that she was always talking about like hiroshi, like place and thing. So kind of like building this relationship between the thing you're showing and the space that's happening. From there, I think it's also a thing about making things look natural, because I don't like forcing things. So that's why for the most part, it's always things that are at rest, whether it's a hand just kind of like laying there, or laying down in bed with someone else, and even like the one over there was kind of like full attention in a way, but it's still very organic. It's not like a very forced position, right? Or a composition that's trying to be forced. Did that answer your question?
I think yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And that brings me to also ask about the choice of color. Because, well, first of all, it has to do with the title of the exhibition. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. The title, also, why blue? What does blue has, for you as associations with maybe the theme or not, or talk a little bit about.
So there's quite a bit when it comes to the word being blue, but also the title of the show, Azul Celeste, or of celestial blue. There's actually a couple different, I guess, definitions for Azul Celeste. Traditionally, it's like sky blue. It's like an actual color that they use in Mexico. But for me, I think of celestial blue is a better translation for the intent of the show. Like I mentioned, and it's been mentioned quite a few times already, where it's all the moments being captured, these fragments, and for me, it's like all these instances of like beauty that I find in just like these everyday, mundane scenes that aren't really as celebrated or appreciated as much, and so either you don't have them because you're super overstressed, or you went through a breakup and you're missing all these moments that you had with someone else, right? So I think capturing those in these tints and shades of blue is very cathartic for me. But that's what Celeste actually came from a song in Spanish that I own. There's a bunch of different versions of that song, but the one that I enjoy the most has a line in there, Llorona de Azul Celeste. And that line stuck with me for a very long time. I think I first remembered about it when Coco came out, the Disney movie. So I think that's the most like contemporary version of that song that's out right now, along with like I forgot. It's a specific musician name. I can't remember the name. If I remember it, I'll bring it up. But yeah, blue is also my favorite color, so that was just an excuse for me to try that out. But this one was actually the first drawing I did in colored pencil, and that kind of really inspired me to start working from there with more variations of blue. Although, if I remember right, it's mostly just done in two different colors. It's
Okay.
like 149 and 150.
Okay, so that was, but I think
Peter
that
might be doing one.
blue,
Kind of get that.
but I think blue, as a color, of course, has all these associations with you, but I think it kind of creates a cohesiveness in the show that and a certain atmosphere that I don't think you would have been, as effective with other color, even if that other color would have been your favorite. So, because I think it kind of portrays that mood of peacefulness, quietness, but also intimate and not relaxing, but then also a little blue, like like that emotion that is not necessarily super happy or super cheerful, is more into that other mood, in my view of the show.
It's a range of emotions within the same.
Within the same.
That is an association we all have with just the color image in general, and it's something I actually talk about in the classes, because I teach appreciation, and we always talk about color theory, or the psychology of color. And every time I ask them, it's like, oh yeah, what kind of emotions or what kind of moods did y'all get when you think of specific colors? And when it comes to blue, it's always, for the most part, sadness.
Yeah.
People tend to forget there's also
Or at least
about
peacefulness.
this
Yeah.
peacefulness,
Yeah.
right? Or being calm.
Nostalgia, or not necessarily, because red has a completely different mood.
It's also like another extreme. It's either all passion or like aggression.
Anger or whatever, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can have definitely both at the same time, or in both. And also, I like to talk a little bit about the role of pattern. We discussed that when we talked about your work, that you also like to explore patterns in terms of repetition or rhythm. And we see that, like, for example, in that work here, also the types of the pattern, there is that component, and I would like you to tell us a little bit.
So naturally, I gravitate to a lot of things that have pattern on them. Mainly because I think, and this might get a little bit weird, but I think it's all about kind of like having a sense of control or order to things. I'm one of those type of people that likes to have like a schedule fully built out ahead of time, so I know exactly where I'm supposed to be, how much time I have to go in between one place and the other, or what's expected of me, and all these things. And I get anxious if I don't have that structure to things. And that's it. Yeah.
My state is color-coded.
I tend to do that too. Also, I take down a lot of notes. But when it comes to the work, I think that also kind of lets me turn off my brain a little bit, because I know what's going to be coming up.
Yeah.
And if I already did it somewhere else, I know how to approach it somewhere else. So I can kind of like fully let go and just let my hand do the thing. But it's also just very visually satisfying for me to see all these patterns, right? I think that's mostly on that.
That's an interesting component, I think.
Yeah.
That creates that rhythm too, like that repetition, that kind of predictability in a way. So yeah. And then you also mentioned, and I know that's an integral part of your work, because of course I know you work for before, but also because you talk about it, that an integral part is the celebration of queer life, right, and queer experience. And I think, of course, that's very much present here, but also I like, and that's a phrase I took from your artist statement, that you also are looking to humanize the queer experience. And I love that because as everything, there is a stereotype, right, into queer life that not necessarily is the truth. And I love how you, through your work, you want to take it to the real things. Like, no, this is not necessarily about what people may associate with it, but it's just a normal life. But humanizing it in a way that just, this is just normal people in their normal homes. So can you, talk a little bit more about that?
So, I know when most people hear like queer art and stuff like that, and the type of images that usually come to mind are usually very sexualized, over-sexualized images, right? Penises and all these other things. But there's more to that, and I think with my work, I really want to shift the focus away from that and have this appreciation for, like, again, these everyday moments where it could just be anyone. That's also another big reason why in a lot of the work, that there's also the absence of faces. It could just be anyone, right? The other part behind that too is my boyfriend doesn't like having his face in the work. So it's like, that's why we're working around that. So whenever he usually is present in the work, it's always through a very specific perspective or angle, or there is no face present.
It's not recognizable as, this is a portrait of this person, this is just a portrait of the moment or of the, how you relate to that person, which I love because it really can be anyone.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think
And
is.
then going back, I think a little bit to, I think you mentioned about the scale of the work being so intimate and small. I think drawing the viewer into that and having this, what's the word?
That close,
The closest to, but kind of like this anonymity
yeah,
to the figure
exactly.
pushes it.
Yeah. Because it creates a feeling that anybody can relate to. And I like that because that's what I always think that art is the main purpose of art to me, is to connect, right? That
Right.
people can relate, it connects us, among each other. It really is about the human experience. It's the way we connect with everybody without language. It transcends, right, the barriers of language. You don't need to talk, you don't need to explain, you just feel it and you relate.
Right.
So I think that's something that in this show and in your work, but also this show portrays beauty, right? It's the human experience. It's more, to me, it's of course about the queer experience, but it's even more than that. It's about just being human.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that is a big thing I think about when it comes to my whole process, making sure the viewer is able to connect with it to an extent. I know you're not going to get the full information, but also want the work to be able to talk for itself without me being there to explain kind of like everything about it, because then it just kind of defeats the purpose. And I know sometimes that does have to be the case, but I do try to give you a little bit of information when it comes to titles. So those are usually referenced to poems, song lyrics, song titles, and I know that doesn't always come across, but to the people that do end up like Googling things, that song might come up, and then they listen to it, then they'll give you more behind the mood of the work, or sometimes even the message.
And I think also another component is that it captures the emotions, right? And I love also from your statement that you mentioned how at home you can feel yourself comfortable just out of all the demands from society, and that is that space where you can feel you just be yourself. And I think that's what in the show I think is also beautifully done. That sense that okay, this is how you feel at home when you can be just yourself, at peace, quiet, or not necessarily at peace, but yourself. Right? So that's something that I got from the show. And I think now we can maybe talk a little bit about some specific pieces if we have time, yes. So we already talked about the first piece, but do you want to tell more about how that became like the inspiration for the rest of the show, which is that piece.
This one.
And yeah, that smaller one. And then we wanted to talk about the two portraits and what were the, you know, thoughts about it, or what were you thinking when you did those, and whatever you want to share.
So like I mentioned, this was the very first colorful drawing I did, because for the most part, especially most of you that are familiar with my work, I'm mostly working charcoal. Lately, I shifted a little bit to graphite, and then from there I went into color pencils.
To what?
Color pencils. What's the brand called, Peter? I always forget.
Faber Castell? Is that what you
I
mean?
think so. I always forget the brands. I remember the numbers because at one point I messed up, and I was using the wrong glue, and it shows in one of these. I'm not going to print it out just in case y'all can figure it out. Maybe later I'll tell y'all. But there is one of these drawings, two different color pencils or two different shades of blue.
Unintentionally.
Unintentionally, because I didn't realize until like an hour in.
You're like, oh, okay.
I'm using the wrong pencil. I was like, maybe I can.
That's something that
Yeah.
happened to me completely.
Yeah, this was the first one where I started experimenting, working, I guess, outside of grayscale, and people liked it. So from there, it's like, okay, how much more can I push this? Because it is monochromatic, and yes, I am used to working with that, but charcoal is way different from color pencils. And yeah, from there, this was like mid-2022. So these are actually the two oldest works in the room. Everything else is from this year. So the charcoal, this one, 2022, and then from there I started taking more images and revisiting older one like that curtain. That used to be a print that I made back in 2019, maybe 2018, I don't even know. But yeah, from there, I think the second one I made was, it's a good question, which was the second one? I think it was that one.
Okay. And then the way the show came to be, because we talked about it too, was because there are, of course, every artist is different in the way they put up a show. But I think what you mentioned, and I think it's interesting always to know, is that you wanted to have it. You had already the title, I think, right? And that's how you started working towards. Right? Everything.
Right.
So that was the process. It was not the other way around. It's not like you compiled like several pieces that were blue and then put them together. It was intentional.
So, like I mentioned earlier, I already had a show title in mind, that's in Celeste, from that one song. So I had talked to Iman about like maybe almost 2 years ago now, when I first mentioned that I wanted to do a show based around the title. And at first I was really struggling to figure out how the show was going to come together, or like what kind of works I should be making for that. To the point where I was getting very frustrated, because at first I was trying to dissect the song that the title was coming from, and seeing what other instances of color or what scenes I would get from that mentally as I was listening to it. And then from there I decided to just kind of shift away from that and just make a show that's completely blue. And that's where all this kind of started coming together from. And normally I would have the work already, and then I would sit down and make a title for that show, and then maybe make a couple more pieces for that. I'm sure some of y'all work in the same way, but I think this is the first time where I had the show title first and then make work specifically for that, as opposed to the other way around.
I think that's really interesting. And then I think I would like to end, at least my part of the discussion, with the two portraits, because I think they're very interesting. They are very powerful in the films they portray, and they kind of share. So if you want to talk about them a little bit, and then we, of course, if we can talk about whatever you feel really that I don't think, but
I think we covered most of
it. And then of course we will have time for questions and
Right.
comments.
Yeah, so the two self-portraits, I know for the one, the landscape one, the top piece, a friend of mine had been telling me, like, oh, you should do a self-portrait of you just kind of like sitting in the tub. Another one of my friends told me, yeah, you should do like a whole, like this whole new thing where you're just crying in a specific color palette. She wanted me to make a painting. Some of you might know her, Aranza Ortega. She's from Veracruz. Painter. She was here in Houston for a while. She showed with Epstein Gallery very briefly, and then she went back. She moved to Paris and she went back to Mexico. But that's what she wanted me to do.
Okay.
My what I ended up doing to satisfy both of those friends was doing that scene where I'm just kind of like sitting there having, at that time, kind of like this existential crisis where I didn't know what I wanted to do, but also it's like I've been applying to a lot of different things and getting some yeses, some no's, so I'm sure the artists know exactly how that goes. But kind of like trying to figure out where I'm going from here, what I want to do next, and kind of like how much of myself am I kind of using trying to satisfy all these things. That's why I titled that one Encontrarme, which kind of like trying to find myself. It's also a very cool song by Carla Morrison called Encontrarme, so if y'all remember that later, look it up. It's a great song, and that kind of helped me kind of work through that specific one. When it comes to your little one, that's mainly just about the feeling of, you know, you have to be somewhere and you're getting ready to go there, but you really don't want to go, and you're just kind of like, you don't have the energy for it, you don't want to be with people. I'm very introverted, so I usually work in small spurts when it comes to going out, going to artist talks, going to openings, stuff like that. So that's why you don't probably see me around a lot. But that's mainly the feeling behind that. It's like having to go outside and socialize and all these other things, meet people you don't like and all that stuff. People that is good.
It requires a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's a struggle sometimes. But yeah, that's like the main thing behind those is kind of like, how do I capture the certain moods or the feelings I was going through in these specific things? And
I think we covered everything we wanted to talk, but now I think we can open for discussion.
Angel, I just want to mention that you have been very brave because you mentioned that you recently came out as a gay man to your family, and it was a very intimate thing, and the work is very intimate, but you are showing to the world who you are and placing in a way that is not, like you said, the queer images that are so bombastic and crazy. It's life. It's life. It's your choice. You find a man to love, and it's normal. And I applaud you for that. It's beautiful.
just to build on that a little bit, I guess for a little bit more context, I came out to the grad school, which was, when I came out to my parents, was 2017, like early 2017. And even since then, my dad's brother is also gay, but there was a very big, there was a lot of drama around that on my dad's side of the family and how their siblings and how their mom treated him, my uncle, to the point where when I first I came out to him and I came out to my dad, one of the things he told me was like that he was proud of me and all this, you know, but it's a very supportive relative, but that I should be careful of how I act out in public, or if I meet someone and I try to hold their hand and all these things. And then when he first started seeing my work and how it was shifting to show things like this, he texted me, he's like, hey, great work, but you might want to stop showing images of that. And
Yeah, well,
that caused me to work
his experience
Is
were-
Yeah, his experience has been vastly
Yeah.
different from mine, and again, I can
But it's
appreciate
a
that.
different generation as
But
well.
it is vastly different. Our friend groups are completely different and
Yeah.
supportive on different extents. So just to give you more context on how that's kind of been developing. Thank
Beautiful
you.
work.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll second Lisa's comment. I feel that I guess the coming out and like how we see queer portrayed in modern society, and to your point, is very in your face and very blatant. And I feel that nothing connects you more to a human being than a personal experience, right? You might have prejudices about, anything in life, but there's nothing like seeing another human being and understanding where they're coming from to actually become closer and really understand, the reality of a fellow human. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
I have a question. So now that you did this work, you came out and this work is beautiful and it's already there. So what do you think about your future works? Like, do you feel the need to still talk more about this, or now you're free and you want to, you feel free to explore different, different things, or?
There are other things I've addressed on and off in my work. Very early undergrad, I was very heavily political because I was also navigating American or who are Hispanic or Latinx, and they move to the States where they're in this gray area or this limbo, and they're trying to figure out their identity and how to fit in and all these things. So I also went through that whole phase, and then I started working a lot with depictions of animals, like the axolotl, the echolotl from Mexico, the salamander, the Xoloitzintli, the dog, the Mexican hairless, which is the national dog of Mexico, but up until recently it was very rejected, because it was like this ugly thing that was supposed to represent like all of Mexico, right? But, so I was connected to that to an extent, because I was, again, in this weird gray area where I couldn't fit in one side or the other. If I went to Mexico, all my cousins would be like, oh, every gringo and all these other things, right? Because when I speak Spanish, it's not the same as theirs. It's different accents and all that stuff. Mine's very formal compared to theirs, where this has like this kind of like salon quality to it, because I'm from the city. And here, you know, brown. So it's always kind of like, oh yeah, there's this guy. Shouldn't you be at home with your wife and your kids? It's like, no.
But that's the identity crisis of
Yeah.
being immigrant, right? That you don't belong anywhere. Because so me, it happens. I've been here 20 years. Of course, I arrived when I was close to 30, so my accent, I would never lose it because it's impossible. But to my Venezuelan family, I'm the gringa. Because, you know, so now it's just you. Yeah.
It's another thing. It's another concept. But to answer your question, it's always going to be present in the work, just maybe not as overt. The next body of work I'm thinking about making for the next couple shows I have in mind for next year are going to be different. So it's still going to be touching on the subjects because the coming up processes
Yes.
never ends. I came out to y'all when y'all got here, right? So every time I meet someone new, once they find out, that's me coming out again. So it's like this endless cycle, which he wants, well, you don't laugh about this, but you know, the cicada, the chichana, the thing that happens every year in the city that we associate with summer, and we usually run out despite how loud they are. It's this, again, this cycle that happens every year, so I kind of see that's a metaphor for that. So you'll see some more cicada work from me in the next couple of years. So yes, it'll change. The stuff will still be present.
And because it's part of also who you are, so it's impossible to separate.
I think even if I did move completely away from showing like queer life, and if it stopped being autobiographical, it would still have the association with it because my name would be attached to both queers.
Yeah, that's
Why is this one called Biblical?
So there's another song by Callan Scott called Biblical, and it's about, he's also a gay person. Singer, musician, great artist if you haven't heard his music before. So that was kind of my way of hopefully pissing off some very religious people. If you're all religious, I'm sorry. I have a lot of conflict with religion in general. I grew up Jehovah's Witness because my mom's side growing up, so that was very traumatizing. But you know, also a lot of how things are going in the United States because of religion to an extent. That was my way of kind of being a little bit cheeky and naked, but also the song's it's a love song. So it's just my boyfriend's saying with the ring on it. I haven't proposed yet, but it's coming. Spoiler alert.
I know.
Yeah.
Anybody else questions?